Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world and for those who have passed away in our community. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Smurl? Here. Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild? Here. Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. King?
Here. Dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, minutes of the Civil Service Commission meeting held January 3rd, 2023. 3B, minutes of the Scranton Historic Architectural Review Board meeting held February 9th, 2023. 3C, Controller's Report for the month ending February 28th, 2023. 3D, Lackawanna County Planning Commission reports reviewed February 10th, 2023 through February 27th, 2023.
Are there any comments on any of the third order items?
I only have one comment on third order items, and it's going to be something I'm going to have Frank reach out to the administration. I did see that in 3C, $4,000 was paid to the Nossaman firm for the month of February. Just looking in to see what actions they completed for the month of February.
I'll look into it, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had one comment as well. This was regarding the HARB meeting minutes from February 9th. And in there under miscellaneous, they had a discussion about whether or not a PA statement of financial interest was required since they're an advisory board. And it seemed to be that they were required to have that and to submit that on an annual basis. And so I was wondering if they haven't been doing that in the past, if the other city boards and commissions have been compliant in doing that. Maybe that's something that the ethics board would be able to provide us with more information on. Mr. Voldenberg, would we be able to inquire about that? Okay, thank you.
It is my understanding that all boards and commissions should fill out a financial interest form.
Right, so I'm wondering which ones have not been completing that, so we want to make sure everyone is on the same page. Thank you.
No more comments received and filed. Any council members have any announcements at this time?
I have a couple. So first of all, as chairman on the Committee of Public Safety, I would like to congratulate former Scranton Police Chief Len Nemeka for 30 years of service, dedication, and devotion to public safety. I wish him a very happy retirement. Secondly, St. Lucy's Church Spaghetti Dinner will be Wednesday, April 12th, and Thursday, April 13th. It'll be at the church auditorium on 949 Scranton Street, Scranton, PA. The cost is $14 and includes spaghetti, meatballs, salad, bread, and dessert. Tickets can be purchased at the door, so, and donations, they're looking for donations also of cans of soda, cases of water, and et cetera. And then at the Ukrainian Club on Railroad Avenue, there'll be an Easter ham and kielbasa raffle. It'll be Saturday, April 1st from 2 to 5. And they'll also have entertainment, junior highs. There'll be some raffles, including 10-pound hams and 2 rings of kielbasa, 18 of them. And again, that's on Railroad Avenue over on West Side. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Any other council members have announcements? I have a few. I was asked to read this from Deb Nehus. As research all but wraps up and invitations begin to be forwarded for next week's tribute and proclamation recognizing Women in History Month and local women, Deb Nehus would like to thank the following people who helped create the list of the first women to serve: the reference staff at the Albright Memorial Library, the Abington Library, Sarah, and others at the Lackawanna Historical Society, all citizens, clerks, secretaries, borough managers, and even mayors within the various municipalities throughout Lackawanna County. Most of all, Kathy Carrera of City Council staff, whose kind words and support kept the project moving along. It truly was a countywide group effort, and Deb appreciates all who offered advice, information, and words of encouragement, and thank Councilman Mark McAndrew for saying yes to an idea which was out of the ordinary and which allowed the identification and commemoration of some of the most notable history-making women throughout Lackawanna County. So thank you all for that. I just want to congratulate Norma Jeffries, who had a wonderful article in the Sunday Times, and well-deserved. Thank her for all of her contributions to our city. Very much appreciate it. And I also would like to thank and congratulate former Police Chief Lenny Nemeka for over 30 years of service to the city of Scranton, and we wish him well in his retirement. That's all at this time.
Fourth order, citizen participation.
Joan Hodowanis.
Thank you.
Joan Hodowan at Scranton. Yeah, you stole my thunder. I'd just like to say that Nora's only been back in town for 5 years, and this is what she does with her retirement. She's done more for the city in 5 years than most of us have done in 50. And the other thing is, I think when she comes to this podium, she will offer constructive criticism and even complaints, but she does so with dignity and grace, and she sets the standard for civil discourse. So when I grow up, I want to be just like her. I know you always pause at the beginning to remember the people in our community have died, and I would ask you to remember Francis R. Martin. He was a soldier in World War II, killed in Europe. He's declared dead in 1946, and through the miracle of DNA, his remains were finally identified. He was from West Scranton, and he will be laid to rest among the honored dead at Arlington National Cemetery this Friday. So please keep him and his family in your prayers. Larry West, as he was leaving, showed to me the audit. It's a fine baby boy, apparently. Apparently they only received it this morning, so it didn't make it on the agenda. Hopefully we'll see it next week. And I asked Larry if the mayor's made a decision on the penalty clause of the audit contract, and he said they're considering it. And I told him point blank, I'm not going to wait much longer for an answer. Yes, no, and why? And if they still can't, answer that question, I'm going to write a letter to the editor, because I think the people in town who are paying taxes need to know how their tax money is being spent. And I want to know, with Kohansky being late for 4 years in a row, why we aren't asking for some of that money back. We should be. And if we have in-house problems, let's get our people trained. If we have third-party problems like with maybe the actuary, let's get that fixed, but let's get the audit done in a timely manner from now on. Speaking of timely manner, where is the DPW contract stand that hasn't been posted on the website? It's been 6 months.
Did we get an answer, Mr. Voldenberg?
No, Mr. King. As of today, the HR and IT is following up with the attorney, the city's labor attorney.
Somebody's making a lot of money on that with billable hours. This is also unacceptable. The people pay the salaries and other costs for these unions and these employees. Let's get this done. Or they should explain to us what the problem is. They signed it on September 13th. Let's get a move on. What about the $600,000 loan to the icebox that now belongs to Geisinger? Is anybody going to claw that money back?
I believe that's tied up in litigation at this time.
Well, we better litigate long and hard. Didn't we kind of sell that thing to the previous owner for, what was it, a lease for $1 for 99 years? Yeah, our tax dollars at work again. And where do we stand on posting the statements of financial interest on the city's website?
I think we're-
According to the ethics code, it's a must.
Okay, I think that's still being reviewed, and hopefully we'll address that in the very near future.
That's correct, Mr. King.
Okay. And, well, that's all I have tonight, but I understand from Mr. West that there's going to be a public caucus on the audit, and we're going to have Cohansey come down here to talk about it.
I believe so.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'll be looking forward to our chat next week.
Thank you, Ms. Sarvanitz. Les Spindler?
Evening, Council. Les Spindler, city resident homeowner. I too would like to congratulate Len Nemetka on a 30-year career. He served the city with dignity and respect. I've known Len for about 20 years. He's a wonderful person, and good luck in his retirement. I'm sure he'll pop up somewhere in security or something like that. I know quite a few police officers that are retired, and they work in a federal building in security. He'll probably do something like that. He's still a young man, but good luck, Len. I wasn't here for quite a few weeks, so last time I was here, I spoke about Dorothy Street, that there was a storm drain put in, but where they dug the street, it's sinking. So I went by the next day with my dog, and there were all kinds of lines painted on the street there where the storm drain is. I said, oh, that was really quick. So anyway, a couple days later, I went by, and there was a big hole dug on the side of the road, the opposite side of the road. And it was covered with metal. And when I said to my wife, I said, I think they're putting a storm drain in the other side of the street, because that always gets flooded when we have a big rainstorm. And there is a storm drain about 75 feet down the street, but most of the water never reaches it. Well, a couple more days go by, I walked with my dog again, and much to my delight, there were 2 storm drains put in. They're right next to the ball fields there, so there shouldn't be any problem with water ponding on the road anymore, but they're still not done, because from where the ball fields are down to the first storm drain, there was like a section that wide of the pavement dug up. So I'm guessing they're going to fill that in and pave it again or whatever. But it's great for the people that live in that area. They don't have to put up with all that water ponding there. Next, speaking of water, the weather's getting nicer now. Wonder if anything's going to happen with our corner now on Bulwer North Rebecca. I mean, it's a year and a half now that I was told that's going to be taken care of, and still nothing. I know now we have a new DPW director. I'd like to talk to him. Maybe he can meet me up there someday. So I don't know what the story is.
Mr. Voldenberg, can you look into that and check with DPW and see if they can, I'm not sure if they've been up there recently, if there's any plans to address that issue?
I mean, the last I was told by Larry West, when he was acting DPW director, was it was a pitch issue on the corner, and the engineer had to go look at it. But I said last year, I don't care how it's pitched, the curb on my corner keeps wearing away. If they put something decent there that isn't going to wear away, I'm not going to have water in front of my house.
Did they cut that, Mr. Spindler, or did they just spray paint it?
There's spray painted.
Okay.
Yeah, the gentleman was up like in October, a year and a half ago.
Yeah, no, Hawthorne Street is the same way. The water runs off the intersection and runs right down the sidewalk
He
like a
sprayed
river.
paint on each of the 4 corners. So he said, we're going to take care of the whole thing. So far, nothing. Saw the mayor on TV a few weeks ago with the electric cars for the inspectors. Where did all this money come from? Was it allocated in the budget, or does anybody know? We're just out of distressed status, and all of a sudden we have all this kind of money.
Some of that money was from a grant, and the rest was from the ARPA money.
Oh, okay. Lastly, yesterday I had to go up to Geisinger CMC for a test. And when I got to Colfax Avenue, I looked to my left. I haven't been up there in quite a while. I couldn't believe the whole block is gone. I didn't know that. I was saddened. I mean, that was a beautiful area there. Now I can really sympathize with the people that come here week after week. I mean, the people who live across the street, if that was me, I wouldn't want to sit on my porch and look at parking garages. It's just awful. These people were chased out of their homes, and now the people who are left there have to look at a parking garage. I don't think that's right. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Lee Morgan.
Lee Morgan. Tonight, I just want to read a letter I gave a request to the council and to the mayor, and I think it's important for the residents to understand exactly what I'm doing. So here I go. Mayor Paige Cognetti, I am requesting that you, yourself, as mayor of Scranton, send legislation to Scranton City Council to restore the public access component of ECTV. A former mayor removed it. He was convicted in a court of law, I believe, for public corruption. His name is Bill Courtwright. Also, 5 council members were involved, okay? Pat Rogan, Bob McGough, Tim Perry, Bill Gahan, who's running for county commissioner, what a joke, and Wayne Evans. I have asked City Council to confirm the names of the elected officials. I'm going to ask the council members next week about that. I have asked the City Council to confirm the names of the elected officials involved. ECTV at inception was a PEG channel, and am seeking to return it back to its intended use. Many groups used it, including the Scranton Taxpayers and Citizens Association. The franchise fee generates $1.5 million from Vertical Cable or from Comcast, and I know that's not used to fund the ECTV, but that was how it all came to be. Okay, so I'm just asking that it return back to the way it was previously. And Scranton City Council, I said to them, Scranton City Council, I, Lee Morgan, am requesting confirmation of legislation that removed the public component of the PEG channel at ECTV, and for the Scranton City Council to have a public forum on the issue by the complete city government, including the mayor, and to invite former Mayor Bill Courtwright and the remaining former council members, and I told you who they were. There is a question of who is on ECTV's board of directors, okay, who their members are they members of Scranton Tomorrow, how they were appointed, and by who, also who directs them, because they receive public funds from this council, okay? Now, so, you know, we're going to see where this goes, but I don't think it's going to be a happy day for the city. And I really think that every council member should be really shocked by what's happened to ECTV, not for me, but for all the residents, okay? Because when you look at the history of PEG channels, they were designed for something, and I think all 5 council members and the mayor should read it and know what it was meant to accomplish. And the other thing I'd like to say is that I watched the meeting here tonight from the back about the projects you're doing. And the most troubling thing at all that I see there is this council has no idea what's going on. You're sitting there, you're watching the mayor, you're watching the other parties in play. This meeting isn't being conducted properly at all. Because before you had this meeting and before this funding was directed to anywhere, you should have sat down with all the parties involved, looked where the money was going, okay, looked what the project entailed, how much the project cost, what the materials cost, what the benefit to the residents were. It's like you're on a fishing derby and you're throwing a hook in the water, seeing if you can ask an intelligent question. It's the most asinine thing you could ever see happen to millions of dollars. That's how the Scranton School District got in trouble. That's how the city got in trouble. Because we have council members who ask silly questions without all the information, and in the end, the residents are stuck with a tragedy. And I'd just like to say that, you know, I paid my taxes today. And when I total the taxes I paid to this city and the government for 1 year, I paid $50,000. And I'm only an ordinary, simple man. But I'm going to say that we as a country cannot continue the way we are going. And these 5 council members you're looking at today, you're supposed to be representing us. And when you don't have the knowledge you need to make a smart decision, then you fail, and then we suffer. And it's just not the way to do business.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Joanne Williams.
Good evening. I'm here again tonight to let's talk about Geisinger, right? And I appreciate Les's comments when he was up there and he saw what it looks like. I heard a few of you council people were around that area. I don't know if you got a chance to see what a beautiful neighborhood is destroyed, okay? But I'm back here again because I partly own a home that was my grandparents' that they bought it in 1933, okay? And now we can't sell it. We've had 3 buyers, and once they find out, we have to tell them what Geisinger's plans are. We don't know what it's going to be. They back right out. A few of us have said to us, me and my cousin, oh, who wants to sit on the front porch and look at a garage? And I don't know what Geisinger's thinking. I don't think they care. An 8-story parking garage. Now, there are 5 homes left on the 500 block of Colfax, okay? And we're willing to sell ours, and I'm pretty sure the person next to ours is willing to sell theirs. Before you people who we put in those seats, like I have said before, okay, you do not represent Geisinger. You represent the residents, the taxpayers, and the children of this city. You need to do the right thing. Tell Geisinger to buy those homes. Or tell them to make it a 4-story parking garage. It's going to be a mess anyway. They've ruined the whole neighborhood. I'm not happy, and this isn't the end. Now, I want to go on to something else, right, that's near and dear to my heart, mental health. I don't know who speaks for the Scranton School District, or, you know, who relates to them from this board, but today a 13-year-old emotional needs student was told today he has to leave Northeast Intermediate because of the boundaries. He has to go to South. Now, he's been at Northeast since he's in 6th grade. 7th grade, he's in 7th now, right? This particular child has several mental health issues and has been through a lot of trauma, and he is crushed. So people reached out, administration, Mr. Gentilezza, the whole thing. Oh, that's our policy. That's our policy. But they won't let him stay there. He loves his teachers love him. And that's what I said, the answers from the school, the administration was, you know, it's our policy. You know, mental health matters. Now, I love high school sports, okay? I like basketball, I love football, my brothers played it. But that seems to be more important in this city with the school district than the children who suffer with mental health. And I miss you, Mr. King, being the administrator there. I do, because I know that they counted with you. At Northeast Intermediate, there is no assemblies on bullying. There's a lot of bullying going on there. There is no assemblies on mental health and what we can do. So, where are these so-called administrators? Mental health matters, especially in children. The suicide rate is humongous, and this child has said a few times he wanted to kill himself, okay? They don't care today. So today, Northeast Intermediate left, I'll give you his first name, Matthew, left Matthew behind. They threw him away like a piece of garbage. We all need to consider mental health, and whoever speaks to the Scranton School, I'm going to their meeting too. Scranton School Board needs to tell them they need to change their policies. This child is crushed today, and it makes me sad. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Ron Ellman.
Council, I had to swallow my last Rolo just now. I imagine most of you saw this about Medicare in the paper Monday. I think it was Monday. It said Americans are losing Medicare. Americans that have been paying for it. It doesn't say nothing about all these illegals that are on Medicare and Social Security. And then there's talk of it won't be here for the next generation. You know, this has been allowed to be destroyed the last couple years. It's just a heartbreaking thing. Where I was talking to my brother, who I'm 21 years older, and tonight he was talking. He said, "I won't get disability or nothing probably." I said, "Well, I don't know. Who knows?" And this mayor wants to did name a street after a failing president like this. He doesn't deserve anything in this city to me. Maybe. And I was listening to the talk about the parks. Nayog is a failed dinosaur. It's been neglected so long, it's just not like it was when I came here in the 70s. I was there with my kids a lot when the zoo was there and all. I remember it. It's a shame that went that way. Where I live, a block from the river off of Parker Street, for 20, 25 years, I used to walk through the woods over there to behind the Toyota dealer where the little bridge is. There was a path the kids made on the trail bikes. A beautiful wood, beautiful. It could have been turned into like the Abingtons. But somebody in Harrisburg, probably never been here, they leveled all the trees. You can imagine the cost. We got a bicycle path there. Instead of people having a park for families, how many people go there? You have to carry your bike there to start with and ride bikes. Day and night, the quads and the trail bikes race up and down the place. there'll be an accident sooner or later, I imagine. In this town, when there's a bad accident, it seems to be swept under the rug. Look at Bob Benke. I've complained and complained. Mr. Quinn's slaughtered this poor guy in front of witnesses. Nothing been done. The man was Mini Kosu, I forgot his name. He was hit by a woman right in front of my house. She stopped up by like a block up the street and looked at her car. Not about this poor guy laying there dead on the street. Nothing done about her. She didn't put her brakes on. She didn't stop. It doesn't make sense. North Main is like a racetrack. Saturday night, a lady hit a dog. I was standing there while I was walking my puppy back home. She had to be going about 65, 70 miles an hour. And besides that, there was a lady trying to get the dog back into the yard where it escaped. You know, it could have been tragic. I've complained for years about the speeding cars. Your kids are standing there on sidewalks that trucks have tore up. Nobody cares. I told you one time they knocked the fence down where the school bus is. Nobody seems to, I don't know. It seems to me speeding cars are a big problem, but not around here. You can see when the sidewalk where trucks and cars are probably 3 feet under the sidewalk on this little curve. They've tore up 10 or 12 feet of it, and it's got a cold patch. Right where your kids are, for crying out loud. It's time somebody does something for them. I don't have any kids there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ullman. Dave Dobson.
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident of Scranton. Okay, I got the marker this week in the right place. Last week I did mention nonprofit vets organizations should have a few benefits from the city. They were the poor guys that got drafted, and some volunteered. But I lived back then, and it turned out it wasn't the most popular thing to get the letter in the mail telling them to report. And so I would like to see if we have a VFW or something, take their trash out. They're not that big even anyway. You know, so enough said on that. The speaker's missing from the back. That was there last week. Was that a loaner or something? So
I think that they were testing that speaker out, and it's my understanding that they're in the process of purchasing a similar speaker that's going to be mounted so that it'll be much better sound quality.
Sure. You know, you get consternation. People are carrying on a conversation. I spoke to somebody, and right away I had somebody jumping all over me, and I don't need it. Last week it was mentioned that Bob Casey closed the state hospital system in Scranton, and that was not true. Dick Thornburg closed. During the 80s, I remember seeing him on television. We're getting out of the hospital business. So for better or worse, we lost the state hospital. I've seen elderly relatives in there. The care wasn't the greatest, but there and again, at least they had care. And I read an article. I kind of messed up. Lost track of it. You have Brian Fulton's This Day in History. And there were, right as Naog Park was being planned, there was mining going on under it, which was supposed to be taboo, forbidden. No mining under what was to become Naog, and it was probably like 130 years ago. So I have to get in touch with Mr. Fulton, or you could, at, and he could send you an email even on the, I have the phone number here. It is 348-9100. Righto, verified. Okay, so, you know, maybe our pool problems is a great big mine void under what is the swimming pool at Naog, and that's why we seem to develop trouble, you know. A lot of places have been undermined. They even caught an illegal, somebody punched a hole in their basement floor in my neighborhood, and they were heating their house for years, going down into the mines on Willow Street in Southside. So it's something to consider. I don't know if maps would even exist from that time, but you could get in touch with the Bureau of Mines. And I talked about walkability last week, and I got a little stern, but I don't see where stop signs are going to work downtown. And I certainly hope that we don't tear out a whole bunch of stoplight apparatus and go with this plan. I recommend always stops everywhere so people can get across the street, and that's about it. And I don't know what to say about bike, because they assume that they're bike paths. They assume that they're a pedestrian and they just do what they want. I used to go out along the old railroad tracks that were abandoned for bike rides. And last week there was a comment passed about you people being pay to play. I don't know if I were you, but I wouldn't tolerate it. That's the limit. The only time I say something like that about somebody is when they're convicted in a court of law for it. Thank you. Have a good
Thank you,
night.
Mr. Dobson. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard before council? I would ask you to please state your name and address. Thank you.
Sure. Laura Augustini, Grandview Street in Scranton. I'm president of the Green Ridge Neighborhood Association, and I'll be speaking again at the zoning board meeting, but I wanted to say a couple of things first. First, I wanted to commend Mr. King for all of the work that he did working with the associations. We truly did meet 4, 5, 6 times over the past year, and he was able to accommodate most of the requests that were made by the various associations. When we all met as associations together, we talked about the fact that we didn't want to be singles. We didn't want to be the Green Ridge Neighborhood Association, the Hill section, the South Side, that we wanted to come together as a unit. And I think we've all done that. So I want to make sure that you're aware that it's not just the Hill neighborhood people that are against or that would advocate for changes to the zoning in the Hill section. It's also the other associations, because we want the best for the entire city. There were changes made to Green Ridge, which I appreciated, moved some things around, some changes made to the short-term rental definitions and requirements. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of all the work that did go into it. And I wanted to make sure that the rest of the residents were aware of all of the work that has gone into this zoning ordinance. It's a long time coming. I only became aware of it in the past year and a half or so, and that's on me. But I want to make sure that people realize that this isn't a new thing. This is something that's been worked on for a long time, and that we're better together. that you need to realize that the city as a whole needs to be behind this, and that you don't just focus on what's happening at Geisinger, happening in the Hill section, but that you see the whole picture. That being said, I would hope that you would listen to the recommendations, or the requests, better said, of those in the Hill section with regards to the 200 block of Colfax and the change from a 45-foot height or from a 100-foot height requirement to a 45-foot height requirement. I think it's fantasy to think that Geisinger is going anywhere. They're going to build there. They've already invested millions of dollars in it. So we need to make them accommodate us, not us accommodate them. I know that we are a college and healthcare city. You know, that's where our employees are. But we need to maintain the neighborhoods that are in the city. That's where our taxes come from. Geisinger's not paying taxes. They're nonprofit. You've got all of these residents and homeowners who are paying property taxes. Also, as an aside for just Greenridge, I'd like to advocate for additional police patrols in Greenridge. We do not have an assigned car. That's a good thing, because we don't really need it in terms of crime, but we do need it for other things, just for safety of the children and those who are walking in the neighborhood. We have people blowing through stop signs constantly. North Washington, Woodlawn, North Washington and Richmont, North Washington and Woodlawn. We've got schools in that area. I would just like to see the police have a little bigger presence rather than just a drive-by every, once a shift. I think we need to kind of look at that again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Augustini. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard?
Tom Coyne, Manuka. Touching back, one of the documents in on the file today is the budget, what has been spent so far this year. I believe it was up to the end of February, or it might have been March. But what I noticed interesting in there is the budget year that's listed as the budget is coming from is the year 2022. Obviously, people aren't paying attention to numbers. It should be 2023, as that year is closed and we're in a new year. So if you take a look at the column for the total of money for this year, it actually reflects at this point 2022. As of the pool in Nayog Park, qualified census tracts are not defined as required for government services. A park and a pool complex owned by and run by the city would fall under government services. That is one of the cutouts in the final ruling, is that qualified censuses do not directly apply to government services. That way, government services such as facilities in a neighborhood which may be affluent could actually get funding they deserved and would not be banned because they're in the wrong zone. So saying that it's not available because the area map does not allow it is not completely true. Now they're asking $1 million for a ARPA evaluator to work with the ARPA team who has an ARPA coordinator who designed where the money would go, and I guess they'll coordinate with the Wilkes-Barre group from the universities who are the ARPA coordinators that make sure everything is in compliance. So we have a new a new evaluator that they want to work with two other evaluators that are currently out there. Seems like a lot of money is putting for evaluating evaluations. There's a $1 million plan to revise the pool they're looking at. So that's $1 million to do a plan for a plan that had 3 plans that were 3 feet. That was for a plan that originally had plans of 3 pools. So we're once again getting money for a plan, for a plan, for a plan, and we need another plan to plan for the plan, and then the overall plan for the park itself. That's a lot of wasted money. On to SAPA. It was noted by the county commissioners to please make sure that when council passes the ordinance, the language states that it does not take effect until all 9 SAPA municipalities adopt, as Dunmore is still holding out. That was done by Liz Donato, the regional planning manager at the county office. Fingers in the work. Before it came before this body, Kyle Donahue had stated, "Additionally, I am in full support of your proposed project, but as a representative of the city residents, I want to also give them the opportunity to form and express their concerns." So he's 100% in full support of it before the people even get input. Of course, we can go, Geisinger, of course we can go into detail and we'll actually go in. Well, we can't because we don't, without knowing the zoning, we can't decide on what the land use will be. I know the rules and how many council members can be together for events like this, and I didn't want to get too far ahead of myself and invite anyone. I'd like to invite Dr. Rothchild to attend since she's a Hill Section neighbor and has a healthcare background. Larry, the same question goes to the mayor. I don't want to inadvertently violate any sunshine law rules. Translation of that, I don't want to have the sunshine rule come into effect and have a public meeting that actually has to be advertised and a public caucus. There's a lot more here, but I don't have the time to go over it. I'll continue it next week. There's a lot of documentation back and forth between the city and Geisinger for the entire plans that was never made public. And some of it's concerning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coyne. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard?
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Matthew Perry, and I am a 4-year resident of the Scranton city. I grew up in Clark Summit and attended college at Penn State and State College, and have spent the last 4 years in medical school at Geisinger Commonwealth School of Medicine, GCSOM. Following my residency at the Geisinger Northeast program in orthopedic surgery, I will be returning to Geisinger to serve my home region as an orthopedic surgeon. For all of these reasons, I am dedicated to the betterment of the Scranton community. The School of Medicine was founded almost 15 years ago with the goal of increasing the number of physicians who will practice in Scranton and surrounding communities. As our community ages and our physician population ages as well, I am proud to be a part of this critical mission. In my 4th year of medical school, I had the opportunity to interview for my residency at several elite hospital systems, which helped me understand and appreciate areas for improvement within my own home health system. From my perspective, offering future medical students the opportunity to get a world-class education in Scranton and to continue this mission of caring for NEPA is crucial to our community and its well-being. The opportunity to expand Geisinger CMC to include a larger emergency department, increased hospital rooms of higher quality, and more efficient parking solutions would greatly improve the patient experience. During my rotations at GCMC, I've seen patients wait several hours to receive emergency care for multiple reasons. First, when a patient needs to stay overnight, they must wait for a hospital bed to become available. But we don't have enough hospital beds for all of the patients who are in need, so they end up occupying a bed in the emergency department. Second, multiple hospitals in the surrounding communities can no longer provide emergency services, forcing our hospital to treat a larger population. The longer we wait to provide a solution, the worse this problem will get. The proposed expansion would not only improve the patient experience, but also greatly improve the student learning experience by enhancing the learning environment in multiple ways. More patient care areas will provide improved and increased learning experiences for students. The opportunity to expand care teams and further specialized treatment teams will offer unique opportunities for advanced training, such as increased residency and fellowship programs. Furthermore, as the learning environment becomes more advanced, we will attract more attending physicians who will work in our community and serve as mentors to our medical trainees. All of these benefits will in turn attract more interested students who may ultimately decide to serve our community in their future careers. This cycle of improvement and positive feedback is how elite programs become great and become greater. For these reasons, I ask the City Council to approve the proposed zoning ordinance as it was approved by the City Planning Commission and advanced by this body on the first 2 readings. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Matthew, can you state your address before you leave?
Yes, sir. My current address is 831 Adams Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 184510.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good evening, Marie Schumacher, East Mountain. First, I'd like to start by thanking Mark for taking the initiative to improve the acoustics in this room. I was really disappointed when I came in tonight and couldn't hear a lot of what was being said at this table because the equipment was removed. I hope if it's just a dollar amount, you people will help ECTV or whoever is going to buy the proper equipment. But I know it's a pittance compared to the thousands we were being told that could happen before. So the quicker the better, let's say. Now, last week, I did not have an opportunity to get to the podium because I attended a program of my little friend and got here before 7, and people were still at the podium because I was listening to it. But because the door was locked, the back door was locked, I walked around to the front door was locked. And then I thought, well, if I'm patient here, maybe somebody will leave after they speak and I'll get in. Well, 3 people left, I got in, and I thought, very good, I can get up here. Well, guess what? The next door is locked. Now, I can see 1 door locked, seriously, but 2, what is the need for the second lock? And, it just keeps people out. So I think that should be looked at personally. And I think, and on the parks, the one thing I did not hear was whether or not we are going to do a safety inspection of all of our parks. I, as a taxpayer, do not like having that liability hang over our heads. If you go to, I forget the name of the park, but you go in there, the door, I mean, there's a gate that gets into the playground area, but if you go over to the sliding board, you get down part, and then there's a hole like that big. And nothing's been done about it, and all it says is, something like park closed, but it doesn't even have a gate on it. And so that's...
What park was that, Mrs. Schumacher?
Oh, it's
Is it Robinson or?
No. It's closer to the DPW. Somebody's name, Chick Feldman?
Chick Feldman?
Yes, that's
Okay.
it.
Thank you. We'll check on that.
And then I wonder if I'm going to live long enough. I mean, I know I'm close to being a dinosaur now, if I'm not already, but I would like to see what is going to happen to our stormwater authority. I mean, I've been listening to this forever, and when is it going to happen? I don't see anybody even doing anything. I mean, there's a study here, a study there, but I don't see anything as far as an authority goes. Also, I've been out going door to door on petitions, and we have a very large number of homes that do not have numbers on them. And that is in the in the code that people are supposed to do that. So, you know, I would hope that we would either do it or get away with the authority or the rule. Now, quickly, the pilots. I would like to know next week what you people are going to do to get a group together to go out and visit some of these non-taxable businesses, actually, and see what you can't get them to give us in lieu of paying their taxes, as they are supposed to do. So I look forward to hearing how you're going to do that, or get peeps to go, get maybe even you all going out during August, or getting the authority or the administration to do some visiting and tell us what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schumacher. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard?
Yes. Good evening, Council. Dave Rinaldi, the property owner on Colfax. I wanted to talk to you about something tonight, but before I get into that, a lot of people are talking about the values of the property up where I live on the 200 block of Colfax and the 400 block of Wheeler. Now, it's very simple for you to quantify what the harm is to the people who live there. Geisinger set the price of all those properties. You just need an appraisal of what they'll be worth when there's a 100-foot garage there. And that is the real harm. You can ask your solicitor, you can ask Attorney Skikiti. This is the way it's valued. So, but now I want to get onto what the other thing I wanted to talk to you about tonight. Last week, a gentleman got up here and he talked about how he had a good life and his family had a good life working for Geisinger, and that's fine. Gentleman got up here today, I guess he's in med school, and he's telling you from a perspective like a V. They're looking at it from one little point. Now, what I'm suggesting is that council should be open to look at it from above and see all the little points. And one point I want to make up specifically is we talk about emergency room. Now, yes, Scranton does not have enough emergency rooms, but who principally uses emergency rooms for regular medicine? We all know it's the poor. So great, you're gonna have a mega hospital with mega emergency rooms. Scranton will be better off. But what does that do? Because the gentleman last week talked about there's no hospital in Tunkhannock, there's no hospital in Honesdale, there's no hospital in Montrose. I don't know whether you spend a lot of time around the county in the rural places, but if you take a ride, you'll see disaffected people. Why? Because services get concentrated. This is the same thing that's happened with beverages in the United States, with meat in the United States. They've all become mega monopolies, a couple of providers. And this is why these people out in the rural areas are disaffected, because everything is here. They want to get here. How are they going to get here to the emergency rooms? Are we going to have a fleet of helicopters? Maybe drones, right? That's the future. Maybe they're going to bring people to the emergency rooms in drones. I mean, those are the people really that are affected. And I'm asking you, your legacy starts now, and it starts with a very difficult situation. But as a Democrat myself, and without universal health care, these are the problems we're going to run into. And if you go on the side of the mega corporations who can do these to try to put other ones out of business, what you're doing is you're making it harder and harder for everyone to get the services because they're getting further and further away, and it's contributing to the angst that's in society now. And I wish you would think about that in the overall picture. And I understand, you weren't elected for Northeastern Pennsylvania, you were elected for Scranton. But please consider the fact that every decision you make here is going to have, especially in healthcare, is going to have an impact everywhere in Northeastern Pennsylvania. And if you consolidate it here, no one else is going to have it. They're going to all have to come here. And listen, that's great for making money, because that's what corporations do. And that's what they're looking for. The question is, do you really want to foster that? And that's why I talked about before Lehigh Valley and building these smaller facilities. I think that's really what we need. We need medical coverage out in the peripheries where corporations don't think about the cost so much, but the benefit. It's great for Scranton, as I say, but I wish you'd consider that. That's really what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Rinaldi. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard?
Timothy Farrell, North Abington Road, Clark's Green, Pennsylvania. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Tim Farrell. I am a general surgeon, and I'm also the chief of surgery at Geisinger Community Medical Center. As full disclosure, I am, after 20 years of being in private practice in Scranton since 1995, I am currently a Geisinger employed physician. I'm also not a resident of the city of Scranton. My father's from Greenridge, my mother's from Southside, and although the Farrell and Scott families have lived in Scranton for more than 100 years, I grew up in the Abingtons and I live there now. I'm here today to advocate on behalf of my patients and the people of Northeastern Pennsylvania in favor of approval of the zoning ordinance and in favor of expansion at Geisinger CMC. We've heard a lot of great counterpoints this evening, and I appreciate everyone's comments. I was here for 20 years before Geisinger was. But what impressed me most when they got here was their immediate investment in the city of Scranton and the future of healthcare in Northeastern Pennsylvania. I currently work in a $100 million facility that Geisinger built upon arrival in Scranton. We have 14 operating rooms, 19 intensive care units, and it's raised the level of healthcare in our community. We're surrounded by healthcare systems that are failing. The imminent closure of the Moses Taylor Emergency Department on April 1st highlights the importance of timely expansion at Geisinger. Our expansion will focus on the areas of greatest need. We have the largest emergency room department, or emergency room in the area. We have the only level 2 trauma center in the area. We have the busiest emergency department in the entire Geisinger system. But with that, at 38 beds, our emergency department is less than half the size that it needs to be to evaluate the 150 patients that we evaluate every day. The second area of our expansion involves conversion of semi-private rooms to private rooms. I don't think any of us here today would choose to be in a semi-private room as opposed to a private room. The COVID-19 pandemic humbled us. It reminded us how susceptible we are to infectious diseases. There's less risk of cross-contamination between patients in a private room than in a semi-private room. It's also a great patient satisfier, but it's also been shown that patients do better, recover quicker, and have better outcomes in a private room where their safety, privacy, confidentiality can be protected. Over 100 years ago, 8 courageous women banded together and created the hospital that was our predecessor, the Hahnemann Hospital. If we would go back and criticize one part of their vision, it would be the decision to put that hospital in the middle of the neighborhood. We can't change history, but we can approve the expansion to improve the health care to the patients of our area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard?
My name is Barbara O'Malley, and I live on Wheeler Avenue in Scranton. On March 7th, a spokesperson for Geisinger CMC addressed City Council. She identified herself as a taxpayer in the city of Scranton. When she finished her remarks, Councilman Schuster asked her for her address. She replied that she was not a resident of Scranton. So she intentionally misled the public with her taxpayer in the city inference. Whose eyes was she trying to pull the wool over? I, for one, do not like being played, and I doubt any of you up there like it. While technically, as an employee in the city, she pays the annual LST of $156, it is a far cry from the property taxes Scrantonians pay, the highest in Lackawanna County as reported in the Sunday's Scranton Times. I would gladly trade my $5,000 plus tax bill with her. Is this example of petty shadiness reflective of Geisinger's CMC business ethics? I now have a greater appreciation for my neighbor's ongoing trust issues with Geisinger. But for me, the larger issue is whether or not the information that Geisinger administrators provide city officials is being manipulated as well. The hospital spokesperson blamed the struggles at CMC on the lack of space, but there are other factors at play. In December, as reported in the Scranton Times, several hundred Geisinger employees, including ER techs and other specialists and professionals, voted to unionize. The reasons were given that they gave were 1, understaffing, 2, unsustainable patient-to-provider ratios, 3, increased workloads, 4, staff burnout leading to low morale. Anecdotally, we have been told that floors have been closed in the hospital due to lack of staff, which contributes to bottlenecking and other problems. In an op-ed piece published in the Scranton Times, CMC employees expressed these sentiments. We were a community hospital long before Geisinger bought the facility. And while community is still part of our name, it doesn't feel as though community is something our administration prioritizes. Well, we as neighborhood residents and Naog Park residents feel your pain. So I ask Council, I want you to consider if CMC, if they're willing to stretch the truth about the status of a taxpayer and gloss over serious staffing issues, what else are they willing to do or say to get what they want? We know that all of you are being lobbied hard by them and this administration. But please, don't take everything CMC puts out there at face value. Ask questions, ask follow-ups, dig deeper, explore different perspectives. In other words, exercise due diligence on behalf of the real taxpayers of Scranton. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Malley. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard?
President King, members of Scranton City Council, Edmund Skikiti, Arthur Avenue resident for 38 years in January. Also serve as the pro bono counsel for the park area residents who are opposed to the radical zoning changes that are presently before you and will come to a vote sometime after the public hearing on, was it April 18th, Mr. King? Correct. Just on that regard, before I get into some brief comments, one of the things that Tim from the Hill Neighborhood Association asked is whether or not council is prepared to waive its rules on time limits for speakers. Since it is a public hearing, there's going to be a presentation of evidence. I intend, if I'm going to be here, to present witnesses, some of whom may be expert witnesses, and their testimony is going to take more than just 5 minutes. So I'm wondering if council has thought about that and can it think about that between now and sometime reasonably before the public hearing so we know how to prepare.
We're going to make every effort to stick with the 5 minutes. However, I'll try to allow for some extensions to accommodate.
So my comments are predicated on a couple of news articles that we've all seen in the last week. One nationally with the failure of banks and the pundits who have looked at the issue, federal government officials, people on Wall Street, attribute it to mismanagement. It was no small article when we read a week or two ago that Geisinger had suffered an $842 million loss. Is that as a result of mismanagement? I don't know. But it's certainly food for thought. And if they're having that kind of financial issue presently, how, if at all, is that going to bear on their ability to go forward with anything that they have planned? They spent probably close to $5 million acquiring real estate without even knowing that there's going to be a change in zoning, but they did it anyway. So there may or may not be some management issues there, not only at the upper echelons of hospital management, but at the board level as well. Medical hospitals in this country, medicine, healthcare is a very volatile issue. So we could only look back and see what happened, and I mentioned this to the Planning Commission, down between Moses Taylor and now Regional Hospital, where all of that land, all those homes were taken, razed, taken off the tax rolls, and nothing ever happened. And that was, I think, probably 15 years ago. The other thing that I thought was interesting in the news was the tax.
That land is actually on the tax rolls. Sorry.
It's back on the tax rolls? Well, it may be on the tax rolls, but because it's a profit, because it's for profit. Yes, I agree. But it doesn't change the fact that a whole neighborhood was wiped out. The other matter that I thought briefly at the time I have left that I thought was relevant to this argument, and that's the tax burden in the city of Scranton. We are the highest taxed community in Lackawanna County, and it's not even close. The more we allow nonprofits to eat up residential property, and the more we reduce the tax base, the greater the burden is falling on those of us who remain. I, for one, have a tax bill. Someone said $5,000. I don't want to tell you what mine is, but it's substantially more than $5,000. Thank the good Lord I can pay it, but there are a lot of people who can't. And this continuing eroding of the tax base is going to destroy this community. We can't make it up. The university, I believe, pays $200,000 a year under the pilot program. Geisinger pays $0. They haven't offered to pay anything. They're here trying to tell you how much health care is going to be benefited by this development. And by the way, I, for one, would be elated to have top quality health care in the city of Scranton. But whether it happens or not is another story. And how it happens, and whether it happens at the expense of one of the most established neighborhoods in the city is a whole other argument. The amendment that we proposed to the Planning Commission was very, very simple. It basically changes one side of one block to mirror another block by reducing the height of the garage or the structure to 45 feet from 100. Geisinger is not going to abandon their plans if you adopt that amendment. I can assure you that. Hopefully we can work together. We've never been approached to discuss anything with them, despite our overtures in that regard. And I hope when the time comes and we meet again, they'll have a greater opportunity to express our views. Thank you.
Thanks, Attorney Skakidi. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard?
Fifth order, 5A motion.
Mr. Smurl, do you have any motions or comments?
Yes, I do. I was driving through the 200 block of Railroad Avenue, and from the 200 block of Railroad Avenue, there's a new, I believe it's a new water main going in, and it goes multiple blocks all the way to the viaduct. I don't know if the holes are so deep over there and how long they've been like that, but the road is really torn up. Sure. So, Mr. Voldenberg, if you would ask our pave cut inspector to go there tomorrow and find out who's responsible for that, that disaster of multiple blocks. It's a busy area, and it's pretty much the only way to come to the city from that area. But if we can find out who it is, who's responsible for it, and get it repaired, and also our pave cut inspector, before they repair this road, can we find out what rules the city has as if, do they compact the, underneath, some of the holes were like 5.5 feet deep. So there's going to be sinking there. So, but they were at one point putting concrete down before they put the blacktop on top. So I'd like to know what the city's code is on that one.
I'll ask those questions, sir.
Thank you. And one other thing, I had requested Music Street and South Webster Avenue, multiple cars parked in the corner, and it's hard for kids to cross for school. We had asked this a few weeks ago. Would you ask our traffic department what is happening up there?
I will. The city engineer is doing the traffic study, and I'll follow up tomorrow.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Smurl. Mr. Schuster?
To follow up with Mr. Smurl, I also had Railroad Avenue on my list of things to address tonight. So if we could just add to his request, if we could reach out to the pave inspectors to get the timeline that they've been told for Railroad Ave. Have they been inspecting the current work, and how they are ensuring that the restorations are up to code and correct? Some of the codes some of the concerns in that area is that the utilities aren't using sufficient binder, top coat, et cetera, for that. So if we could just add that to those requests. I did notice, again, I brought it up, I think in the fall, I noticed that there were tents and other encampments along the expressway from downtown to, say, the Main Avenue exit, where you get to North Main Avenue at North Scranton Trip Park. Can we reach out to the Scranton Police Department? I know they were very quick with the last request. If we could see if they can get out there and see what's going on with these encampments along the highway.
I'll make note of that, sir.
Thank you. As well as, it seems that the houses, I don't know if it's the last few houses on Main Avenue there, it seems that they're dumping trash possibly down that hill. So if we could send that over to code enforcement to see if there's trash being dumped down that hill from, say, the rear homes on Main Avenue down towards the expressway. I want to thank Joan for bringing something up. Private Francis Martin, who's going to be laid to rest in Arlington. It's my understanding that some of his family members are going out to attend that service. It's great that they found this man, and that some of the family members will get some closure. He was killed in France on January 16th of 1945. I think originally they thought it was in a different area, but thanks to the DNA studies, they found out where it actually was and were able to piece that together. So it's great to hear for his family. So it goes out to his family as well as thank you, Joan, for bringing that up. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Dr. Rothchild?
Yes, I just have a couple of quick updates. The first one being something I've mentioned a couple of times regarding Bloom Avenue, which is a pretty narrow street, and some DPW trucks were having trouble getting through the street as a result, and vehicles were parking on both sides. So we requested that a study be completed, and there were recommendations in the study for it to be changed to parking just on one side of the street. So next week, I was made aware that we'll be receiving legislation to make that change there on Bloom Avenue. And secondly, we had some complaints about permit parking signs being needed, and other signs as well. And the new sign machine that was received still is not operating yet. I think they need to get some software updates from IT before they can use it to create the new signs, but they were at least able to find one extra permit parking sign that could be added to where it was missing on Vine Street. But there are still plenty of other signs that need replacing throughout the city, so I'm hopeful that they'll get that up and running very soon.
Thank you, Dr. Rothchild. Mr. McAndrew?
Yeah, I mean, all I have tonight is just, I'd like to forward two public comments The first one, Mr. Voldenberg, being see if we can get some more police presence in the Green Ridge neighborhood. Okay, and secondly, safety inspections for the parks. I think I remember last year some were done by the previous parks director. Could we verify that? And in addition to that, let's see if there's a list. 60 degrees today, so everybody's looking forward to getting out there. Let's see if this is going to happen throughout the city and all the parks are inspected for safety.
I'll reach out to Mr. West in the morning.
That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. I have a few answers from last week. Joan Hodowanitz, per Matt Dominis, the city finance director, and Larry West, the BA, legislation for the new auditor, Clifton Larson Allen, LLP, is anticipated to be presented to council by the end of March or the first week of April. I'll let council know if anything comes up that affects this anticipated time frame. Mark Migliori, ECTV, a message to council. Last week, ECTV tested the use of a public address speaker facing the gallery seats to alleviate ongoing audio concerns. The test was successful. ECTV is now sourcing an appropriate speaker for the job, and it will be permanently in place within the next few weeks. Faye Faranis, we are still awaiting response from both DPW and the Business Administrator Office related to DPW supervisor overtime for 2022 and 2023 to date. The electronic doors, as mentioned earlier, I'm told are set to be open each Tuesday from 5:15 p.m. to 8:05 p.m. for council caucus and meetings. So I don't know what happened last week. I apologize for that, but I'm told that 8:05 is when they locked down. But apparently that didn't happen last week because you obviously would have gotten through. A reminder that the zoning ordinance public hearing is being moved from April 11th to April 18th at 5:45 p.m. in these chambers. There was an executive session held prior to this meeting tonight to discuss litigation, negotiations, and personnel issues. Also, the Pocket Park on the corner of Linden and Wyoming finally got started today. And I'm sure Joan walked by there and saw the machines down in there, so we've been waiting patiently for that to happen, and we thank Scranton tomorrow for getting that project rolling, and we look forward to its completion very soon. Thank you.
Mr. King, could I say one more thing?
Sure.
All right, while we're on answers, thank you, Frank, for getting some answers. We did get a reply back from DPW about Rubicon. So last week I asked a few questions about Rubicon. So the first one was, what are the savings to the city at this point in time? And the answer that I got back is we cannot calculate savings because we have not implemented the new optimized routes. The timing for the routes is going to start the first or the second week of April. So they won't be able to calculate any savings until the routes have been started. The second question I asked was, have the routes for refuse collection been solidified through the Rubicon system? The answer was that it's a work in progress. Rubicon lost some key personnel, but they're getting caught up. They're still within the time frame of the contract for implementation. And then the last question I asked, well, it's a several-part question, but and an update on the 11-yard truck. Are we now using the truck for route pickups, and have we received the 520-yard trucks? And the answers that we got back were we're negotiating the disposition of the 11-yard truck, and the truck isn't currently being used. We should have one of our 20-yard trucks delivered next week and the remaining 4 by the end of April. So with that being said, Frank, could we just reach out to DPW and ask for clarification on what is the negotiating the disposition of the 11-yard truck? What does that mean? And let me know if I'm correct with this. With the DPW overtime, were we requested to put a right to know in to get that information?
I'll reach out again in the morning. I hope it won't be necessary, but I will if need be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, file to council number 55, 2023, an ordinance creating and establishing special city escrow account number as noted, entitled FSA city employees to accept and disperse funds received from city employees participating in the city's flexible spending account program that permits city employees to use pre-tax money to pay for eligible health care expenses.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question.
On the question, thank you, Mr. Voldenberg, for reaching out. We're waiting for an answer to hear back on this one, if I'm not correct.
Not as of this afternoon, Mr. Schuster.
All right, thanks.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, Resolution Number 212, 2023, authorizing the creation of a flexible spending account benefit program for employees of the City of Scranton.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend the final vote of item 7A.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for adoption, Resolution Number 213, 2023, appointment of Kyle Evans as a member of the Scranton Housing Board of Appeals. Kyle Evans' term is effective upon execution of the resolution and shall expire on November 30th, 2025.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothschild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
Eighth order, 8A, file the council number 53, 2023.
This ordinance is the establishment of an environmental advisory council for the city, and it was tabled until more information was received. We did receive further information during caucus this evening, so I'm hoping that maybe next week we can possibly get this back on the docket.
Mr. King, with that being said, I would hope that we as council could have a discussion to see how we want to move forward with it. I think there's a couple things that if we're going to move forward with the commission, I think we need to add into that.
Sure. We can amend it however we please.
8B, file the council number 54, 2023.
This is the zoning ordinance, and it has been tabled as required by Lackawanna County Planning Commission. It will be brought back from the table and placed in seventh order for a vote after a public hearing held on April 18th, 2023. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
It's adjourned.
8:40.